My name is Patrick Obath. Professionally, I'm a mechanical engineer, and I am currently retired. And my start in Rotary was quite some years back, 1993. But it was the year I formally joined the Rotary Club. Before that, I was actually involved with Rotarians in a lot of things. Helping them out on weekends, going to camps, doing polio, polio inoculation and stuff like that. The only challenge I had in those early days of my Rotary time was that Rotary clubs used to meet at lunchtime. And I only had 1 hour's lunch break, and my place of work was almost 45 minutes into the center of town. So I had no Rotary club nearby, so I could not attend Rotary meetings. So I never joined. So my early life literally was doing things with Rotarians rather than being a Rotarian. And that marked about 10 years of my life before I joined Rotary. That's what I used to do. I did a lot of my committee work at the Rotary Club of Bintulu. So I was a RILA chair, I became a service projects chair, and I was there for 3 years. So I did those two committee jobs. When I came back, I was posted to Mombasa, back to the refinery where I was. And again, I looked for a club that met in the evening, and I joined the Rotary Club of Mombasa North Coast at that time. And that is where I became president of the club. And I served in the club for about 3 years, and then I became a president, but the club was suffering at that time. It was a problem, and there were very few people in the club. So we had to take it turns to be presidents. There are two actually. One was a growth of, actually I had three, and each of them was significant in its own right. One was just growing membership, and it completely changed the way the club meets. And we had a very simple thing. We only met for 20 minutes, formal club business. After that, and that time the membership was 7 people. After that, one of the members would invite us to his local for the social. So we'd probably end up going around town, whatever it is, to a different place. But the interesting thing was that all of us used to go for that social. Whereas when we had the previous situation where we had regular meetings, half of the members would come. But once we changed the look and feel of meetings, all the members started going to those meetings. And as we went around from people's one local to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, we were talking about Rotary. And that allowed us to build the club. And within that year, we were able to go from a membership of about 7 to almost 30 within a space of 1 year. But it's purely because we changed the look and feel of the club to suit the lifestyles of the members in that club. We were visited by a school that wanted desks. So we had to go and look and see what kind of school it was. Only when they found that most of the classes were actually falling apart. So we said, why do you want to put desks into classrooms that are going to probably collapse in another 1 or 2 years? So we went back to the drawing board and said, let's think of how we can help these people build classes. So we had an engineer who was working at the cement factory. It was myself. We sat down together and said, why don't we create a special mix for bricks so that we can make them out of cement? And there's a lot of maram in that place and a bit of sand. So we did that, and he played around with it, did all the block forming machines and everything. And we were able to make a brick or a block that was cheaper than the one that was being used at the coast, which are the ones made out of coral blocks. So those were cheaper. So it meant we had a market. One of our members was actually somebody who was a hardware owner in Mtwapa. And that school was behind Mtwapa. So we set up a project which was very simple. We put together money, we bought the block making machine. We appealed to Bamburi, they gave us 200 bags of cement for the club. We went to the club and we taught the school, and we taught them how to make blocks. Those blocks were then sold in our Rotarians hardware shop. And the profit they made was being put aside now for making blocks for the school. So in the first year, they actually made a lot of blocks and built classrooms. That's the way it happened. And the whole village got involved in this thing. So ours was just initial capital. They built 7 classrooms. We were able to then change and said, now we'll get you blocks of wood, we'll get you planks of wood and everything, and you guys make the desk yourselves. So out of that, we just completely changed what we were doing as a project. But it is because we went and met these members outside, and we told them what our issue was, and we brainstormed and everything else, and that is how those members joined, because they were part of the creation of the projects that we did. And then they followed the projects into the club and then into the delivery. I came to work in Nairobi in the year 2000, and I was going to be here for quite a few years. So the first club that I found that was meeting in the evening was the Rotary Club of Muthaiga. So that is how I transitioned and joined the Rotary Club of Muthaiga in Nairobi in 2000, and that's where I am until now. And I think the whole essence of bringing leadership and bringing diverse leadership into Rotary has helped to sort of set the tone about how Rotary is going to be run in this district. And I am a firm believer that we really need to get a lot more women into leadership. I do that everywhere else I am. And that allows us to have a diversity of ideas, a diversity of the way we empathize with things that we're doing, right? And there are things that men cannot do as well as women can do, and vice versa. The big thing that I did when also I was president in Mombasa, now bring it out, North Coast, was the day I became president, the day we were sort of introduced to a district governor during the district conference at that time, which was actually in Uganda, it was in Kampala. And the district governor in my year came from Tanzania, the late Hatim Karimji. I got a district job when I was a president. And it all came by accident. Terry and the district governor, then Hatim Karimji, was sitting in a room somewhere where we had gone for home hospitality. And Hatim Karimji was saying, there's this thing called Raila, I want to introduce it into this district. And I've been looking for people who, whatever. And I was just talking generally with the people who were in that place. And Terry then said, yeah, I know somebody who's done it. And I was in another sort of congregation in the same house. And the next thing I know was Hatim Karimji comes and says, Patrick Obath, and I said, yeah, it's me. You are appointed Raila chair for the district. So then when I came up to Nairobi, I became Raila chair for 4 years. And I then started some in Uganda. I went up to Gulu and Arua, and we had Railas in those places, which I was leading. Then we started one in Ethiopia. That took about a 3-year journey to start one in Ethiopia. We started one in Tanzania. So for 3 years, I was Raila chair for the district. And that really gave me an opportunity of practicing what I was very passionate about time, and that was youth. By the time I was putting my name for a district governor, there was a lot of things that I had not done. Traditionally, a district governor needs to have done several things. Being a club president, being an assistant governor, done a country job, done several district jobs and everything else. You need to have done all those things. I had only done 2 things, or 3 things. I had become a president, I had done the country job, and I had done Raila at the district level. So when I became the district governor-elect, in that year, which is when then COVID hit, halfway through that year, I had taken up a very simple mantra that I had. I wanted to make it possible for somebody under 30 who is employed, married, with 2 kids, to be able to become a district governor. That was really the kind of district that I was looking at, creating that opportunity. So you don't have to wait to be my age to become a district governor, but recognizing the problems that younger people would have if they offered to be a district governor and they're still employed with their kids and so forth and so on. So My big thing when I came into being a district governor and preparing to that was to try and make it easy for a district governor to run a district. And one of the biggest things that I started doing before I even, in the year that I was district governor-elect, was to go for digital meetings. And the first meeting that we had, and they call them prepets, the prepets that we had was actually done digitally, or it was blended actually. We had some people who could make it in a room in Nairobi, in one of the restaurants, and then we had a link for other people to join. And we had some people from Nyeri joining, and they couldn't come because their kids were graduating on that time. We had some people from Western Kenya and all the rest of it joining just this meeting to sort of get to know each other digitally. And there was that mixed reaction to it. So for my year as district governor, really, I focused on convincing Rotarians that you should look for leadership at a much younger age. And again, going back to my conviction with Raila, that you really need to make that pipeline work so that people can move up into leadership quickly, do their job in leadership, and then they can continue to build their careers. And as they're building their careers, they're actually becoming better Rotarians as they inculcate Rotary into their careers. One of the good things I think about Rotary is that in the event that there's a crisis, Rotarians coalesce very quickly. And I don't know what it is amongst Rotarians, but whenever that kind of thing happens, you see some leaders emerging out of the crisis. And that is exactly what happened in that year. We started talking about what do we do and how do we respond to the crisis. And you found the likes of, our current district governor. He jumped out into sort of organizing the hand wash activities that we had. We then had people who are able to connect Rotary to a lot of other companies, bring them in so that they're able to fund a lot of the activities we're doing. And that is, I think, where Rotary really excels. Fortunately or unfortunately, when there's a crisis. And I think even if you look at the polio program that we had, there was a crisis in the world. And Rotary globally came together and decided to do something. You look at the shelter box programs that we have. Where did that come from? Some Rotarians saw a need because of a crisis, humanitarian crisis, to create simple boxes that you can use to go and give people when they've been displaced, they're in camps, or they've had natural calamities where their homes have been sort of destroyed and so forth. So Rotarians thrive in those kind of things. And I think in the year that we had COVID as Rotarians, I think our resilience came through. Rotarians offered themselves, and every single Rotary club in the district was doing something for COVID. And that, I think, was a very satisfying thing to see. And also the corporates that came in to put resources into Rotary to be able to do them into to have impact in the different countries. Some of the corporates went across several countries, others were country specific, but they trusted Rotary. And that trust that Rotary has built, we must never lose, because that is where we hit big when there's a crisis in a country. And I think if we can be responding regularly to that kind of thing, and people see that Rotary can mobilize resources at short notice, and most of the resources are actually ourselves to actually make things happen, then we are onto a good wicket for the future as Rotary in the district. Really, I don't know what I did. I mean, we managed to raise something close to about $400,000 in that year. And I tried to look back and look at a single event that actually made that happen. But I want to put it down to just the fact that at that point in time when things were not very good in the world, maybe that giving heart opened up. And a lot more people gave money to the Rotary Foundation that year. We did the traditional campaigns. I had my, the district governors, matching grants and whatever it is and so forth, matching contributions and everything else. And those are traditional things. The take-up was exactly the same as it is in all other years, yeah? It's mainly the new people who want to start becoming Paul Harris Fellows who do that. But there were some people who actually went out of their way and became major donors. And we started talking about major donors and the impact they can have and the kind of examples they can give to other people. All right? And if just an ordinary person like you became a major donor, it makes other people think that it isn't actually that difficult to give. And we had all sorts of giving methods, and we talked about them continuously. And whenever we went around to these social things that people were doing, and they were sort of, they were feeling good. Not to a club meeting where you're sort of sitting there and everybody's stiff and you're telling them to give. That probably passes through one ear and goes out the other. But when they're in the middle of a bash, and you talk about how good it would be to give and everything else, people feeling the same way you are, I think you get a different vibe in the room. And I think it's just that it was a combination of factors that made the giving in that year a lot more than in other years. I am a firm believer that partnerships are the way for Rotary to go. We can't do large, impactful things as Rotary alone. And we also need people to sell our story, right? People who can talk about what we've done together. And partnerships are the only way that can work. And the people we partner with have got to be people that share the same value system. And if you look at Rotary, you look at some of the value systems that exist globally, the sort of intrinsic value systems, SDGs, you're talking ESG, you're talking about all those things that people do around the world. And you pick them and you look at the 7 areas of focus in Rotary, they're matched. Rotary is no longer operating as in a silo. We're operating in a world that we are connected with people. So if you look at our areas of focus on the SDGs, which is driving a lot of sort of sustainability issues in companies, they're exactly the same. So why can't we use each of those areas of focus, find an organization that is also interested in those areas of focus, and then we co-create interventions where Rotary brings in the people, brings in the brain power. We have a lot of archives everywhere sitting of successful projects that Rotary has done. How many of us as club presidents or even district officers go back into that archive and look at success stories and how they happened? These days, because of the digital world we're in, there's a lot of information that is sitting there. Can we take that up and create a case for partnering with a corporate whose main sustainability goal, say, is to be neutral, zero with water? So if they are using water, they can create water somewhere else and create a water catchment, and you can build trees to catch more water and everything else and preserve water in a particular place. You can put aquifers, etc. So they can say we are doing something to also help our business. And it means Rotary can also help to put water into other places. And that becomes a common area for discussion. And once that happens, what will the story be? I'll just take, for example, I know the Coca-Cola, EABL use a lot of water in their system. If they can have a project that they've done with Rotary, where we have worked together to show that we can put water to very good use and conserve water for communities, who will tell that story better than us? It's our partner. Because for them, it's a big thing, for their shareholders. And that will be the big story, that Rotary does these things. And if they start telling our story, how much more impactful can we be in terms of getting other partners? And I think we just need to switch the partnership story that we put out, because that partnership story that we can put out together with those large corporates and people within our communities will generate really the future impetus for Rotary. Rotary being insular and doing our matching grant projects and everything else, just going to a community, dumping things there, is not going to tell our story, right? We do a lot of public image issues and everything else. It is better if somebody else tells our story. And there's nothing better for somebody else to tell a story than that partnership, where they will crow about it across the whole world. I've done that with small companies who are contractors to big companies. And when they start doing the things a big company are doing, they get more business from there. So These are things that that we really need to embrace in order to grow Rotary. Growing in the traditional manner is going to be extremely difficult for Rotary in the future. But I believe that if we can get partnerships that work for Rotary, that embrace the same values, look at the same areas of focus that they have and we have, we can actually begin to do bigger things that can have bigger impact, but also sell the story of Rotary.